Last week's leftist tactics were on how it's not over until they win, and how even when you think that you've won on a particular issue, they're going to keep fighting and keep fighting and keep fighting. Well, we didn't do this consciously, but when the right lost Roe v. Wade back all those years ago, we didn't give up. We kept fighting. And we kept fighting because it really, really mattered, because 55 million lives matter. And we kept fighting against abortion, even in spite of the fact that the Supreme Court, the ultimate law of the land, had spoken. And there were stories and arguments today about how the Supreme Court should or should not be the ultimate arbiter and, the end of everything. But subconsciously, or I don't know if it was just some synchronicity amongst conservatives and the pro-life movement, we didn't give up when Roe v. Wade was decided, and we kept fighting, and here we are all these years later, and abortion is less popular than it ever was. And late-term abortion is almost universally reviled, although it remains legal only in America. I mean, there are only, I don't say only, I say only in America, but that's not exactly true. There are a few countries like us who allow abortion anytime for any reason, but it's actually quite rare globally. Abortion is less popular now than it ever has been, and it's getting less popular every day because science is helping our cause. With a generation of kids who grew up, their first picture is an ultrasound. They recognize and just know intuitively the innate humanity of the human being. And they're seeing that our arguments, which we have never stopped making, we never gave up, we never stopped. And the culture has changed. And as we know, politics is downstream from culture. We keep changing the culture enough, and the politics will flow after it. And they'll flow the right way, in that the culture will change to disagree with the concept of free and unlimited abortion, and we will outlaw it via the will of the people, not the will of a guy in a robe. And it'll be legislatively outlawed, but over a long period of time, gradually, bit by bit, incrementalism, never give up, all the tactics that the left has done for the last 100 years, we have a bright, shining example of how it works. We didn't do it on purpose. We didn't do it with intention, but we did it in 25 years and managed to make abortion much less popular. And so when we talk about how the left does it and it's so very successful, we can also remember that the right does it too. We've done it once, and we can remember and do this more and in the future and keep doing it. And I think that was something that I just sort of realized. I just saw today. There was an article in Town Hall that reminded me about it, and I wanted to make the point so that we would all remember we have positive news and positive examples of slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, and that was another reason why I was so impressed with the DeFranco point on it, is that he chose to end the show with it and ask his audience whether or not this was something that should be allowed, that is moral, that aborting a baby based on gender is just like any other reason for aborting a baby. That was a really interesting, I think, and important question to ask his audience, because it gets them thinking about the issue, and that does push the culture among the demographic that watches his show, and I think that could be pretty big.
I think it's great.
Of course, if this story turns out to be a hoax and it turns out to be like right-wing marketing for pro-life, anti-abortion, first off,
oh God, I hope not. My God.
I'm massively interested in who thought this was a good idea. I'm not sure if it is like that's the one way it could be, or one of the things it could be. And Fishy, you had another.
Yeah, Fishy had a different.
Yeah, a different idea about this that I think should be discussed a little bit. The idea of it being a trial balloon for the future.
Right. When we've had gender selection abortions been going on. I think Rat in the chat mentioned a while back here that China obviously is one nation that's been doing that. It's happened quite a bit. Sometimes they just didn't bother to wait until, or they just waited until the baby was born if they didn't know the sex, and then they'd take care of it in the fourth trimester, as it were. But the thing is that it's in the West been seen for a long time as culturally taboo. It's not done in the West. Selecting abortion based on gender is completely been rejected by the West for a long time. And it occurred to me that it might be, whether it's a fake story or a real story, it doesn't really matter to this particular thought, but that it might be a trial balloon in an attempt to take the whole patriarchy argument into abortion and say that it's acceptable based on your political belief of what men are or the patriarchy is, and the likelihood of one's progeny becoming part of it. Let's make no mistake that what Stewart is doing is advocacy. That absolutely is the case. And whether you try to call it news as advocacy or comedy as advocacy, it doesn't matter. It's all about furthering his agenda.